Let's start with the somewhat minor note that the Outliers scene here reflects some of the Panopticon themes suggested by the opening sequence and discussed in my first video for this season.
Slow down, blend in. People are looking at us.
The whole concept of mimicking regular human behavior while under watch is very fitting with Bentham's concept of prisoners behaving while under the watch of a guard. And before I discuss new plot projections, let me also mention that I think the thing Caleb has, which Hale doesn't, is something larger than himself. His desire to protect his daughter is very similar to the quality which allowed Maeve to also break Ford's written loops at the end of Season 1/beginning of Season 2.
I tried to chart a path for you, to force you to escape, but you stayed here in this world to save your child.
That said, it is unclear why Hale's attempts to have host children does not also qualify her. Perhaps she is too controlling over them. That seems to be muddled by her scrupulous determination to give them a choice to transcend or not.
Sorry you don't have more takers. Why don't you just force us to join you?
Because that's what they would have done.
Perhaps that will be the significance of her likely choosing to revoke that choice in this next episode. This episode also gave us further parallels between Hale and William in Season 2. And I want to mention that this shot of Hope being dead in Episode 5 is actually an incredibly close parallel to the visual elements in William's wife's death by suicide, even though Hope herself is more of Hale's child. I was originally thinking of the Season 2 parallel to Emily, and the visual parallel to William's wife did not occur to me until this week. And in this week's episode, we saw that Caleb is now enacting a scenario very similar to James Delos in Season 2. Hale's quest for a perfect world seems to be paralleling William's ultimately doomed quest for immortality. Caleb being a disappointingly failed key to that perfection seems to be leading her to the place that William was in Season 2, trying to destroy Westworld.
I'm beginning to think that this whole enterprise was a mistake. I make my own decisions, and I'm gonna destroy this whole fucking place!
What would the parallel to destroying Westworld be here in Season 4? Temperance is thoroughly destroyed, or at least abandoned and decrepit, as we have seen. One of the most exciting posts this week on Westworld's subreddit was this one by user Ratuli. We can clearly see that Caleb and Christina used the same elevator on floor 47 with very different versions of the interior of the Olympiad building. This suggests one of two possibilities. Embodied Caleb and Christina are in different time periods, or that one is in a simulation and one is in the real world. I believe the latter. And it took some thinking, but I think I know why there is this other simulation and what Christina's job is. We get an important clue here.
What they do, it doesn't work on all of us.
I think Christina is in a simulation designed not only for fantasy fulfillment for hosts, and in particular for Hale to have fun getting pieces of ass, but also designed to reform outliers. This explains very well Emmett's request for Christina to write more violent stories.
Of course I do.
Well, you gotta stop pitching these saccharine stories. Oh, people want sex, danger, violence, transgressions, melodrama. They want tragedy. Yada, yada, yada.
In Season 3, we see one of Sirach's strategies for dealing with outliers is to send them to dangerous parts of society in order to get them killed off.
Rehoboam sends this group to high-risk sectors like war, a wood chipper to eat them up and spit them out, dead or useless.
He also uses simulations to change their minds sufficiently that they do not disrupt his algorithms. Caleb was a supposedly successful example. So Christina, being a fragment of Hale tasked with trying to construct loops that work for these outliers and have some fun on nights and weekends, seems to fit. Emmett likely can be explained as a successfully reformed outlier that is now working in the program to attempt to reform other outliers. It very neatly explains why he is attempting to intervene with Christina and get her to maintain her loop if he believes that she is an outlier like him that must stay on a loop to prove themselves worthy to possibly return to the real world in some way, or at least not be killed. And I think the game only happens in the reform simulation, the game Hope refers to with her lines referencing hunting down outliers.
I won the game, and all I got was more of this?
When the host in black says that he is sending her back where she came from,
Take her back to where she came from.
that likely means the real world outside of the simulation. This implies that her on-screen death is real and that we see her both in the game world and the real world. Let me also mention that there may be a clue to the dual worlds through the fact that the outlier captured when Frankie was young was captured by drone hosts and not hunted by a host. This may simply indicate that Hale was capturing at one time and shifted to hunting later, but I believe the outliers may be captured in the real world and then inserted into the simulation where they are either reformed because one of Christina's story loops works for them, or they continue to be uncontrollable and are then hunted for sport. So I think that Hale becoming disappointed by her failure with Caleb, and that driving her to destroy this reform simulation, is a likely parallel with William's disappointment with Delos, and that triggering him to regret creating Westworld. That's my biggest prediction for this week. I'll also mention that it seems inevitable that Bernard's projections will go wrong very soon. The fact that we literally have a character named Hope die previously in the season makes this line,
I've seen a path. Maybe that's enough to give us hope.
well, it seems a little on the nose, doesn't it? And that's all I have for this week. Be sure to subscribe so you'll get my video before next week's finale, and give me a like if this video made you think. I'm Shiva's Right Foot, and I'll talk to you next time.